Welcome back into another edition of the Fantasy Authority podcast, brought to you by the Fantasy Authority. We're joined tonight by Cody Kutzer. You can find him on Twitter at CKutzerFF, and I'm Kevin Steele. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyRat13. And we'll be mocking tonight. We're gonna do a little SuperFlex Rookie Mock Draft tonight. Do it live, for the folks. The NFL Draft is now days away, less than a week. Finally, we're gonna have it. So we're going to be doing that tonight. And so, Cody, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Like you said, the draft is almost here. We're gonna have something for the folks coming up out here shortly for the draft show that we're all very excited about. Should be awesome, man. I actually might be more excited for what we're going to be doing than the draft show itself. That's how pumped I am for it. But I appreciate everyone that's jumping into the mock with us. We filled all 12 spots, and it's the time to jump in here and get this thing going, man.
No, for sure. Yeah, we have a ton of guests lined up for our two shows that we're going to be doing for both days of the NFL Draft. So, if you don't like listening to ESPN, Wayne on or whomever, we're going to have a ton of guests from the fantasy community. Evan Silva, like we mentioned. Graham Barfield. We have Liz Loza that we got. TJ Hernandez, who does excellent work. Elliot Christ. Travis May. I mean, there's so many people. I could go on and on and on with all the guests. We have over 30 guests lined up. So we are really appreciative of everybody that's going to be on with us and everything else. So it should be a lot of fun. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of hard work. And then, yeah, like you mentioned, we have a little promo coming tomorrow. So make sure you check our Twitter feed for that because it's epic. You love it when a plan comes together.
Absolutely, man. You ready to get this going here?
I am. Let's get this going. So we're gonna get this going here with our rookie mock draft that we got going on. We're doing it over on Sleeper. This is a 12-team, 5-round mock that we're doing. Correct?
Yes, sir. SuperFlex and 5 rounds. I figured 4 at least, and I thought I'd make it 5 just for shits and gigs because everyone at this point knows the top names. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people are starting to look for some of those deeper names. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to start this here. And we are not responsible for whatever Justin Mandaro does here at the 101. We do not endorse whatever he's about to do here. And he said he's about to kick this off and get weird. So Justin,
get weird.
Yeah, so that's how you get weird in a Superflex.
Just completely surpassed the quarterback here, Joe Burrow.
Whoo! No,
do these people know we're doing Superflex?
That has been bandied about. Yes.
All right, so the first 2 picks of the draft are Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor. Maybe the guy with the Bengals logo will take Joe Burrow here. This is somewhat surprising. Joe Burrow is thought to be the kind of consensus 101 here, among drafters. So, yeah, I mean, so let me ask you, I guess, while we're starting this off, if like we've had a discussion about before, if you were a team, let's say you are set at quarterback and you don't need a running back or you don't need a quarterback and you have the 101. Would you still take Joe Burrow? Would you take him because of the value that he brings to maybe being able to trade him and flip him for more prospects? Or is this a time, like if you were somebody who was stacked a quarterback, do not need a quarterback at this point, but you have the 101, would you take 101 and take either Joe Burrow or somebody else, or would you look to trade back?
Man, this is where like a lot of these things get, it's hard to put these kind of things in a vacuum. Like I guess if you're saying my team is set and I don't need the quarterback at 101, I'm going to assume that's because I traded for that at some point and that pick turned into the 101. I mean, I still think the play is to take the quarterback in a super flex league, especially dependent on how quarterback hungry your league is. Because like there are some super flex leagues that won't overvalue quarterbacks. So like that's one thing that I've come to learn in a lot of my dynasties is that the quote unquote market is going to be different in every single league. Like we can sit here and say that you should be getting blank for the 101 or whatever else, or you should do this, but even if it's a super flex, if you're not getting those crazy offers for quarterback, like they're going to lose a little bit of value. Of course, they're going to be more highly valued because of the format, but it's all going to be dependent on your league. And honestly, in a super flex, you can never have too many quarterbacks. So I think I'd probably still roll with quarterback there. But if let's say you've been drafting quarterbacks, you had the 101 for several years in a row, and you have Watson, Mahomes, and I don't know, Russ Wilson or something like that, then I could absolutely see a case where you roll with one of these RBs at one. Because I think even our boy Ray has talked about possibly Jonathan Taylor still being in line for the 101 pick in SuperFlex draft. So, I mean, I guess if you're not sold on Burrow and you're worried with Tua's injury history, I mean, I guess that makes that decision at 101 to go against quarterback a little bit easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we still haven't seen a quarterback yet, so we now have DeAndre Swift, CeeDee Lamb, and Jerry Jeudy coming off the board. Still no quarterback. So yeah, they're falling.
Yeah, maybe we should change the banner and everything and just say that this is a regular this is a regular rookie draft, because there is in no world whatsoever that there's not going to be a quarterback taken until this point. I mean, you're up at 107 and we still don't have a quarterback taken off, so
well, I guess I'll be the sacrificial lamb here to take Joe Burrow. But I was actually planning on taking somebody else here because I did not think Joe Burrow had any shot of being here.
And he's not going to. in any other, even if it's not Joe Burrow, it's not going to be any quarterback that doesn't go into the 107 spot.
Messed up my draft plan, but I had to do it because there's no way I can continue to let him fall. Yeah. So I guess with Joe Burrow, like, I continue to have some reservations about him, and I think I'm in the minority on that. And because I think people are looking at him because of going off of what he did last year, but like we're not really talking about. I mean, he played in 2018, and it was not anywhere close to the player that he was this past year. And so we always preach sample size with a lot of these guys, right? And there should be some concerns with, was that a 1-year wonder when he goes to the NFL, when he's on a team like Cincinnati, if that's where he winds up, not that, because they do have some weapons there. So that's not a terrible landing spot to go to, but I still feel like that behind a bad offensive line, that what the Bengals should probably likely have, and not a ton of weapons. Aging AJ Green at 32, Tyler Boyd is nice, John Ross is nice, but certainly not the weapons that he had at LSU. But like, I think there should be some concern with him, and there just doesn't seem to be. Like, everyone's just kind of like 100% sold on him being the consistent 101, and I would have some concerns with that of him, how well does he translate to the NFL, and stuff like that. So I have my own concerns with him. Where are you coming on him?
Yeah, man. I mean, it is kind of weird that like all of a sudden he went from being, if you look at it last year, he was looked at as a mid to late pick for NFL purposes, and he wasn't. Let's put it this way: TFA OG Zach Marmer started a dynasty league that I jumped in with him, and I'm pretty sure it's a 14-team league, and there was Devi and auction and everything else. You know, the kind of leagues that you talk about that people just want to see how big their dick is in these kind of leagues. That this is one of those leagues, and there was no cap on the Devis, right? And I think we had like 135 Devis taken. So super, super deep Devi. Joe Burrow was not one of them. And this is also a SuperFlex league too, where you would expect like dude, there were some freshman quarterbacks taken like that, like, you know what I mean, some like that. But Joe Burrow was not one of them. So I do get your hesitation for sure, but it's almost like there's enough smart people that know how to break down quarterback play and scheme and everything else that are kind of saying, yes, he's a quote unquote 1 year wonder. He did it at LSU in this great scheme, but the way that he plays seems to translate to the NFL, and he did enough with the scheme and on tape that it kind of just seems to be pushing all those aside. As far as the Bengals offensive line, it should be improved this year with what is it, Jonah Williams, I believe, coming back. He didn't play at all last year. He was their first round pick. Billy Price should be there and healthy for the full year, so it should be improved. Like I said, it is a little weird that we have, it's just foregone conclusion consensus 101. I do get the hesitation and the question marks with it, but for me, quarterback is like, that's not something I even bother to try and break down from a film perspective. I just listen to other smart people, and there are enough that seem to be giving him the A-OK, so to speak, that I get it at this point, and he seems all but a lock to go first overall in the NFL draft. So I think as far as SuperFlex drafts go, like I get locking him in there, but I do think that if we didn't have the injury concerns with Tua, that I would have Tua at 101.
I agree with that as well. I think Tua, that's what really knocked him down was that, you know, in itself. And, you know, we've had rumors that possibly Justin Herbert could go ahead of Joe Burrow, which is ridiculous. And, or not Joe Burrow, ahead of Tua. And then, you know, now there's this love for actually, you know, no pun intended, Jordan Love. And I still cannot wrap my head around Jordan Love. And again, people that are heavily followed on Twitter, you know, like Matt Miller, trying to like make little suggestions that comparing Patrick Mahomes and Jordan Love, you know, saying that they both threw the same amount of interceptions in college and, you know, and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know what you're like. It's just ridiculous because one, like, and shout out Travis May, who, you know, put him in his place pretty quickly by saying, yeah, well, Patrick Mahomes also had 225 more pass attempts in his career than Jordan Love did. But I don't know. Like, I don't understand that at all. Like Jordan Love, like I have no interest in him whatsoever. Like I've seen some of his play, and he gets, you know, kind of crazy like Patrick Mahomes, where he runs around in the pocket and, you know, scrambles to, you know, create more time for himself and stuff like that. And I do understand that the weapons that he had there were atrocious, and those things should be taken into consideration with him. But like, there's just way too many accuracy concerns with him. So I would much rather have Jalen Hurts, who is more athletic and has proven to be a much better passer in college, albeit, you know, at Oklahoma. But he's progressed every year as, you know, while in school from Alabama to Oklahoma. So I don't know. I would much rather see. So my plan heading into this actually was that's who I was actually going to take. I was going to take Jalen Hurts if I could. That's kind of where I was going to come down, because I think Jalen Hurts has the potential to possibly be the best quarterback in this class. I think that upside's there with him in the right system and used correctly. I think he could be.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. He's going to have to get the Lamar Jackson treatment, just in terms of a team being able to fully commit to him and put the offense around him and cater it to his strengths and not try to make him something that he isn't. And Baltimore has done an awesome job with that. I mean, even going back to whenever they threw him in, you know, at the halfway point of the year, his rookie year, they did a really good job of like keeping that offense like super limited. You know what I mean? They went from Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson. Like, you're not going to get too many quarterbacks where it's completely different like that. and they did a really good job. And it made people think going into this year that Lamar, like, that's what he was going to be. He was just going to run it 30 times a game himself and everything else. So I think Hurts, in order to reach that upside, is going to have a team commit to him the way that the Ravens committed to Lamar and what he does well and his strengths and everything else.
I'm right there with you, but in terms of like just fantasy football, like that's the guy you want, right?
Correct.
The guy who possesses the Konami code, that can do all those things. And I don't know. We'll see, where he winds up, and I think there is a chance that he could end up going in the second round, or even wouldn't be surprised if somebody queued up and got him in the first round. But we'll kind of see with him. But so for you took Jalen Reagor, which we don't have to have a lot of conversation about Jalen Reagor. We've talked enough about Jalen Reagor, but what was your thought process for taking Jalen Reagor there over some of the guys that were already on the board?
Yeah, I mean, so just to recap, it went Hilaire, JT, Swift, Lamb, Judy, Dobbins. You took Burrow at 107. Then it went Akers to, again, this is not going to be representative of any Superflex mock going forward. But then Reagor at 10, that was the easy call. I was debating on between him and Jefferson. But obviously all the top 5 running backs were off the board. I think Herbert is the safe quarterback. I'm not sure how high his ceiling is, but obviously we know, I think Reagor has a safe floor and that super high ceiling too, depending on what offense he lands on. So for me, that was an easy call at 10.
Yeah, I probably would have went Justin Jefferson there, but
yeah, it was like I said, that was the one that I was debating between. It was either him or
sure.
Jefferson.
So because all the people care, I dropped my rankings yesterday, I think it was, for running backs and wide receivers, and I have CeeDee Lamb at 1, but then I have Justin Jefferson at 2, Jalen Reagor at 3, and Jerry Jeudy at 4. So, yeah, it'd have been a tough decision for me too. I love both of them, Jalen Reagor and Justin Jefferson. I think they're both elite prospects, and the more I've looked into it with them, the more I start to feel more and more like I think they should be valued above Jerry Jeudy pre-NFL draft. Now, once you factor in draft capital, which Jerry Judy's going to be a top 15 pick, we know that. So that does take some consideration there, and obviously that raises him up a little bit more because of draft capital. But I think once you factor everything in, like with Jalen Reagor and his usage in the as a specialist, whether it's punt or kick returns, that Jerry Jeudy never did. I think he's a better athlete than he is. Justin Jefferson, I think they were both utilized heavily in the slot, and I just think Justin Jefferson again is a better athlete than him, and. So that's where it comes down to me for those two, and I think both of them have either just high, if not higher ceiling than Jerry Jeudy. I don't hate Jerry Jeudy by any means, and I think it's kind of a tier for me, all of those 4, where I think if anybody else had them ranked any differently, I'd be okay with it. But for me, that's kind of, I think those are my top 4 guys that I just.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be super interesting to see how the draft shakes out and where these guys land. Like, I'm just so excited to finally see that, so we have something else to talk about versus debating fits and ceilings and floors and everything else. It's, to me, we're getting to the point where, like we've talked about with DeAndre Swift 2 pods ago. They're like, Judy was talked about for so long as the guy, and like now it's almost like he's getting dinged for just being like the guy for too long, almost. And it's almost like a detriment to him almost, because it seems like he's coming out as a finished product, right? Like what you see with him is what you're gonna get. Like, and like the crazy thing is, like, that is a damn good NFL wide receiver. It's almost like where does he have room to improve? Like he really doesn't. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see Lamb being put ahead of Jeudy right now, along with a couple other guys, is because Lamb is also damn good in his own right, but he has things that he can work on to make him better, to raise his ceiling at the next level. So, like we talked about with the running back discussion that we had, these top 3-4 guys, put them in a hat, pull out a name. I'm going to be happy with any of them, to be completely honest.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, like I said, I think all four of them are elite prospects. So since since the last pick, so basically in the second round, I went Henry Ruggs, T Higgins, Zach Moss, Laviska Shenault, Jalen Hurts, Brandon Ayuk. I took Keyshawn Vaughn, Justin Herbert, Michael Pittman, which actually was the decision I was trying to decide between, was going Keyshawn Vaughn and Michael Pittman. I ended up going Keyshawn Vaughn, and then you went Bryan Edwards.
You're damn right.
Jordan Love, A.J. Dillon in the third round, Jake Fromm, and then we are now in the third round. So Jake Fromm, K.J. Hamler, Sheepus, Antonio Gibson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and that is where we end. So far, you've went wide receiver, Jalen Reagor. Obviously, you're not concerned at all with Bryan Edwards and not in his non-testing.
No, because again, there wasn't going to be too much that outside of completely bombing that would have really pushed me off him. He has enough athleticism, and I think for his size too, like he's a good athlete. Like people are dinging him and saying that like he's not a good athlete at all, and I simply don't believe that. I think you brought it up last week with Ray that he was clocked at like 21 miles an hour, and ironically, I think that was against your Mizzou Tigers, was it not? On that screen where he just ran through the entire defense.
I don't know why we got to bring that up. I don't know why that's relevant to the conversation, but yeah, I think it was. But yeah, he was clocked at like 22.8, which was, it was the fastest clock from any wide receiver last year. So yeah, I think he's got more wheels than what people give him credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. So outside of him completely bombing it,
son of a bitch. Sorry. I was going to go Eno Benjamin. That's who I wanted next. He just went off the board. Keep going. Sorry.
Nothing like the live snipe.
Yeah, it's gets you every time. Every fucking time. All right. For the brand, we're going to go Darren Evans.
Talk about this one.
I just think that, what he brings to the table, I think, we had this conversation when we talked about running backs a few weeks ago, and I mean, he's somebody that's rising up draft boards, very athletic, played at a small school at Appalachian State, and I know a lot of people have talked about him as being like a satellite back, which is the conversation we had, and which is kind of interesting with him because he was never heavily utilized as a pass catcher. I mean, he certainly has the ability. It's not like some of these guys only had 3 or 4 receptions, but he just wasn't somebody that was like heavily targeted. But that's kind of par for the course in college football, right? Like most of these guys aren't Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, that is a major outlier for a rookie or for a running back in college to get 55 receptions. So, but I think that's what he profiles much more as in the next level. And if he lands in the right situation, obviously this is pre-draft, so. But if he goes to a team where he profiles as stepping right in and being that, I think it certainly is. I think he's somebody we could see go in the 4th or 5th round. And so I was kind of looking at who was on the board there. There's some other wide receivers that I had some interest in, but I really wanted Eno Benjamin, who went at the 3-6 right before me. But every time I go to take a wide receiver, it was either, like I said, the last one, I was deciding between him, Keyshawn Vaughn, and Michael Pittman. I love Michael Pittman as well, like we talked about last week, but I decided to go Keyshawn Vaughn there. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm still looking for a wide receiver. Chase Claypool, which is an interesting prospect, actually, that, somebody we haven't talked about, I don't think at all, because now he is listed as a wide receiver. And we haven't went really deep enough, which we probably could. We could have done more shows probably to go into the second half of these wide receivers to talk about like a Devin Duvernay, Lynn Bowden, Chase Claypool, all these guys, Van Jefferson. I mean, there's a ton of other wide receivers that we really could have got into that we never did. But Chase Claypool, I think a lot of people have talked about, he should be a tight end. Like if he came out and was listed as a tight end, right? I think that he's somebody that people could talk about as a first round talent because of how athletic he is. I don't think anybody expected him to test as well as he did athletically. But he's right now listed as a wide receiver. But I think I've seen some places that have talked about that they look at him like a tight end, and there are teams that are looking at him in that way. They're not looking at him as a wide receiver. So if that's the case, I think Chase Claypool could be a really interesting kind of, especially if you're able to get him here in this third round. I think that's pretty good value for somebody who, as we know, is the tight end position is often a dumpster fire, but somebody that could provide some value. Now, of course, a tight end, it's going to take some time to mature, but I think the upside's there.
Yeah, for sure. Whenever I was watching, maybe it was Claypool that I was watching, and literally the first thing I thought of when I saw him was just put 15, 20 pounds on that cat and just let him be a tight end. And then he actually went from, was it the Senior Bowl to the combine, and he actually he actually did put on 10 pounds. And then I didn't realize it, like that was a common thought amongst like draft Twitter and everything else, that he should put on that weight and move to the tight end position. So just gonna be super interesting to see how he's used. I did not see the athleticism that he showed at the combine. And that's where I think a lot of people will get stuck, is especially for people who aren't digging as deep, who aren't watching film and everything. And I completely understand why most people don't. But if you're not doing that and you just look at this guy and you see his athletic profile, or if you log into playerprofiler.com and type in Chase Claypool, you're going to be blown away by how he looks. And then if he ends up getting any sort of, late day 2, early day 3 draft capital, I think he's going to be someone who rises up pretty highly, pretty quick for dynasty purposes anyway. So there's a lot of guys who I'm curious to see where they land, how they're being used in that. Someone who went in the same round a couple picks beforehand was Antonio Gibson, and he's another guy who he's starting to pick up hype, starting to get the buzz, even though his production profile is super low at Memphis. Like last year we talked about him, I think he only had like 71 total touches between rushing and receiving. That's how he was utilized, but only 71 touches. Broke a tackle on almost half of those touches. His broken tackle rate is really absurd. And I think Lance Zierlein had the tweet a couple of days ago, just basically saying like the first coach that he talks to that doesn't like Gibson will be the first. Apparently, everyone that he's talked to so far, running back coaches and head coaches and OCs, they all really like Gibson. So it's going to be really interesting to see where he goes and how he's utilized. So between him and Claypool, those are two guys I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, Antonio Gibson. There's been more and more buzz and chatter, especially in Dynasty Twitter and stuff like that about him. And I can see some people's concern because of the fact that he only has the 33 attempts, right? Like it's hard to project somebody but he has the size, he has the body to be an in between or not in between the tackles, but to be an in between the tackles running back, but also somebody who has the ability to be an every down back, right? But we just haven't ever seen that really transpire. Now, you could say if you want to look at somebody like Tony Pollard, who was also at Memphis there last year, I think he only had 77 attempts last year. So again, another player who didn't have a ton of mileage on him entering the NFL. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see with him. I mean, he has all of it. Like I said, like his best comparable is Joe Mixon, and you see that with his athletic testing and everything else. We'll see what teams think of him and where he goes. Like I could realistically see him going in the 3rd or 4th round, just because based purely off that upside. Because I think even if he didn't necessarily work out as maybe a great running back, like a guy that you want as a 3-down back, somebody that you could at least use as like a big satellite back, right? Because he has that in his game. We know he's a terrific pass catcher, somebody you can line up at in space and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like I like Antonio Gibson, and I think he's somebody that I think could be one of the more intriguing prospects that get drafted. Probably late day 2, probably day 3 though.
Yeah, I think something that could prop him up is how highly a team values his special teams ability, because that's also something that he did fairly well this last year as well. I think it was something like 28 yards on was his return average, I believe. So I think that's something that could get him bumped up, along with just being intrigued with his overall skill set. And I mean, I think he came in at what, 6'8", 6 foot, 228, something like that. So really close to, I think, how Mixon profiled. So he's one that's going to be super interesting. And like we've touched on before, just the fact that we aren't going to have all of these insider reports and everything else that we're used to having, because teams haven't been able to go around, media hasn't been able to go around. So I think we're in for a bunch of surprises come draft night.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah, there's so much we don't know. It's been great the last couple of days seeing the content coming out about like how NFL teams are gonna, parodies and stuff like that of NFL teams it's fantastic. I'm trying to do this virtual draft and all the mistakes they're gonna make, but yeah, I mean, this year is going to be one of the more wild years there is. And, like, if you really want to go out, and there's, like, props on where these guys are going to go and what round they're going to be drafted in. Like, I mean, if you've really, really been in tune, this is somewhat even more like you could look at, like, preseason DFS, right? Where, the people that do the most work are going to be able to benefit from this, because, like, it's not as obvious as in years past where there's so much chatter about these guys. So it's going to be a lot of guessing and trying to project things, especially once you get past the first round. I think we kind of feel somewhat confident where some of these guys are going to go. I'm sure there's going to be some players who are, that are surprises for sure. It happens every year, and maybe more so this year than ever. But I don't know. So we'll see on that. So I guess to recap, what's happened so far since the last time that we did. I took Darren Evans, Chase Claypool, Anthony McFarland went. You took Jacob Eason, Antonio Gandy Golden, Tyler Johnson went in the third round. I didn't stutter that, or I didn't pause that time and lose my train of thought after Tyler Johnson. Cole Clement, Joshua Kelly, Bryce Hopkins, Harrison Bryant, Devin Duvernay, Hunter Bryant,
Son of a
Alberto,
bitch.
DJ Dallas, Lynn Bowden, and you are on the clock. So, tell me, why Jacob Eason?
SuperFlex format, third round. That's just something I've kind of, one of my learning curves as far as SuperFlex formats go, is all it takes is one. Like, Josh Allen was a first round quarterback. Not saying that's what Eason is going to be, or that's how I view him, but Josh Allen was going routinely in like the late second and third rounds in SuperFlex drafts, and he was a first round quarterback. So regardless of what you think of a quarterback in this format, having, like, you can't have enough quarterbacks, like I said, going back to our 101 discussion. And all it takes is one team. Like, I remember early on, I think Eason was possibly, this is obviously before Brady, but he was linked to Tampa Bay. All it takes is one team. All it takes is an injury, or, you know what I mean? Now, obviously, right now, there aren't a lot of spots that are just completely wide open for a rookie like Eason to walk into, but he seems to have enough tools, and like a couple guys like him, I know he's gotten completely slammed by a lot of draft analysts and quarterback analysts and things like that. But again, third round, not seeing too much value. I actually thought about going with Tyler Johnson there for the brand. I thought about just making this a straight up brand draft for myself, but in the spirits of it being a super flex draft, I was just rolling with Eason there. And I was also sniped Kamish McGriff, who will be joining us on the draft show. He took Lynn Bowden right ahead of me. So that was my live snipe.
Speaking of Bowden, he's somebody that we haven't talked about, right? And
yep.
He is, again, another player that's kind of drawn more hype recently. What are your thoughts on him?
Again, he's one of these guys that it's going to depend on where he lands and how he's being used. Like, It is
Okay,
so
so then what would be the most optimal way of using him? Because I mean, we could say that about all of them. So, like, if you're a team drafting him, which way do you think what kind of scheme, or how do you think he best fits into an offense?
by letting him do everything that he's shown to do well up to this point. Like the dude is just super electric with the ball in his hand. So you use him as a rusher, you use him like this is I feel like San Francisco is kind of becoming New England. Like, oh, just send everybody to San Francisco. Like it's the New England from a couple years ago. But some place like that where they're going to be creative and they're going to use him as a as a punt returner in the backfield, putting him in the slot, getting him involved in the screen game, things like that. Like the fact that he was the leading rusher in the SEC as a quarterback, running back, receiver, like that is mind-boggling. And if you go back and you look at his game log from this year, I think he didn't even start actually really being utilized as a rusher until he became their quarterback, and that was after like week 5 or something. So like up to that point, he was barely used as in the run game, and he ended up finishing that year as the lead rusher in the SEC, which is just like, to me, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, he's somebody I think that teams are going to want to use as kind of a gadget type player.
Kentucky Cordell Stewart, baby.
Yeah, I mean, very little, again, very small sample size, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, crazy things have happened, but I think at least taking him this late in the draft, where you're getting him in the 4th round, I think you're shooting for the fence here. I think he makes some sense.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. At this point of a draft, just all upside. Like I said, that would have easily been my pick. I was eyeing him up, and then those strong delts and pectorals of Commissioner Griff came through and just snatched him out of my hands. It was too weak. I was too weak to hold on.
Hate to see it. You really do. You just hate to see it. But so, anyways, so some of the other picks that have come off the board. DJ Dallas
had a bit of a tight end run there in the 4th.
We did. Adam Troutman, Thaddeus Moss, Mr. Randy Moss, son got picked. James Porche, Colin Johnson, Isaiah Hodgins, Van Jefferson, Rico Dowdle, James Robinson. Now, for me, taking Albert O, like that seemed to make the most sense. But what I'm about to do is go off the board here and go off the range, if you will, and take somebody who I knew was going to be there at wide receiver. And I took Darnell Mooney. Not a lot of people are going to know that name. I'm sure that the Dynasty Twitter probably knows a little bit more than some of these other guys. But Darnell Mooney is a player that I've kind of been taking a look at and watching, and I think he's somebody that could end up being this year's McCole Hardman, that gets taken much higher than most people expect. That last year when Hardman's name got called in the 2nd round of the Chiefs, people like Twitter burned because everyone was like, "What?" Like Paris Campbell was still on the board when it happened, and everybody was blown away and didn't really know what to say at the time. Obviously now we know a little bit more, and Hardman's better than what people thought. But Darnell Mooney, explosive athlete, smaller frame, ran a 4.38 at the combine. So there's a lot to like with him, and from what I have gathered and the research that I've done on him, that almost every team has done a virtual meeting with him. And so there's a lot of interest in his name. And after McCole Hardman was drafted, we heard that all that stuff come out about him, how teams are really interested in him. And that's not something anybody that was ever really picked up on. So that's why people were surprised. But Darnell Mooney is somebody I think could end up going in like the 3rd round and really surprise people. Super explosive athlete, like I said. I think, teams looking for speed right now, I think he's that guy, and he could end up being somebody that goes much higher than people expect, because right now he's not on anybody's radar in terms of dynasty.
Yeah, his name started popping up a little bit. We were going to talk about him on the pod with Ray last week, but ended up running a little bit long, so we didn't. Fucking Griff again. That's two in a row. Damn it. So Griff sniped me back-to-back rounds. He took Lynn Bowden in the fourth. It was 409, and then came up and took Anthony Gordon, the quarterback out of Washington State, at 509. That was going to be my pick here. So I'm scrambling a little bit. I'm flustered. I feel like Kev whenever Ben Cummins dropped Tyler Johnson. Like I'm short circuiting, and I don't know what to do right now.
That will still go down as one of the darkest days for me ever. In terms of when that happened, that has never happened to me before on a podcast or anything, where I just like completely like hydro locked, and had no idea, and just completely threw me off, fucking Ben. But yeah, so I don't know. So far, how do you feel about your team so far of where you're at? I know you're on the clock right now.
I would have liked it a lot better if I would have gotten Lynn Bowden and Anthony Gordon. I'll tell you that.
Well, so is life. I will say this is nice to be able to just fly through 5 rounds, right? Like this isn't at all how dynasty rookie drafts go. Like dynasty rookie drafts, 1 round could take 3 days, because every time somebody new comes on the clock, their first thing they put out in whatever chat you guys use is pick whatever's on the clock is on the block. So anybody who wants it. So let's hear all your trades, right? And that's what happens. And then next thing you know, you're like, why is it taking so long? And then you realize it's because everybody trades throughout this entire thing. And these drafts can take days to complete, not minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're, drafting through My Fantasy League and you're on the, the slow clock where you have 8 hours to pick. They can definitely they can drag on. Couple of my home leagues, we do the live in-person rookie draft every year, and even a 4-round draft with your buddies and from around you. I mean, even those take like an hour and a half.
Well, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but whenever you're doing a rookie draft in person live, is there as much trading? Because I would think there wouldn't be, because it would be
no, there's not.
Yeah. So you think that takes away from it?
I do a little bit. Just because, you're going over to a guy, like, what are you going to do? Grab him and take him into another room and try and, what I mean?
Hey, I got an offer you can't refuse, huh?
You should just write it on a piece of paper and then just fold it up and slide it on a table to him and just be like, you could do that.
Yeah, like 3rd grade shit, like circle yes or no. Do you want to go out with me? No, because like I said, like it's especially the one draft I have, like we're all cooped up in my buddy's basement. Like there's like no rooms. Like you're going over to a guy trying to figure out like, hey man, can I you interested in this at all? And he's like, well, I don't know, man. I'm like, what are you gonna give me? Well, I don't know. It's like it's definitely hard to do, but like those are also fun. Just getting getting everybody together at the same time at least once a year. But so I think those have their, they have something to offer as well. Where it's really at in the format I love more than anything, and it's kind of almost like a prerequisite now for me for any leagues is just auction leagues. Those are just so much fun. You don't have that waiting, except for whenever you get bumped off your guys or whatever it is. But yeah, it is definitely hard to trade in person. My fantasy league leagues can definitely drag on, but the thing I always go back to is like, especially if you're having them right after the draft, like what else are you doing? Guys might sit there and complain that you're on the clock for too long, you're taking too long. Well, guess what? 2 weeks from now, you're going to be wishing you had another rookie draft. So just slow your roll, hold on to your horses, and just enjoy it, would you?
No, for sure, right? Like it's kind of the same thing that I know it's off subject, but like the Scott Fish Bowl, because the Scott Fish Bowl has 8-hour time clock on draft picks, which you want to draft, so you're like, oh, hurry up, let's go, this is taking forever. But once it's over, you're like, oh man. Okay, well, because it's in July, right? So you still have another month and a half until you're drafting. So, yeah, I totally understand that part of it. I had some killer. Oh, okay. So, yeah, came to me. Okay. Auction drafts.
Kyle's Killer Lemonade.
So you brought this up about auctions, and the most savage thing I think I've ever heard is somebody reached out to me on Twitter and told me about this through DM that they were in their first time doing an auction draft, and someone was like Adrian Peterson. And so like, he bid on him, right? And bid like 40, I don't remember how much, it was like 40, $50 for Adrian Peterson. This was like 5 or 6 years ago, right? And coming to find out, it was actually the Chicago Bears, Adrian Peterson. And he didn't look. And I guess I don't know. I've never done auction, so I don't want to speak too heavily on that. That's the one format I've never done anything with. But yeah, like that is that's fucked up, right? Like that's fucked up.
Dude, there was a Chiefs player I think that was happening with just a couple years ago. There was someone had like a super similar name that a lot of people were taking in like the second round of rookie drafts, and I really want to say it was a Chiefs player, but the name is escaping me. But yeah, sure. I mean that kind of shit happens in regular drafts too if you're not paying attention. Man, that's really gonna bug me until I figure that out.
Yeah, no, it does happen, but it's just fucked up. I mean, to be honest with you, just like okay, I'm gonna. Oh man, no, why is nobody else bidding on Adrian Peterson? Steal, fuck you guys, got him. You know, and oh no, it's actually the Bears, Adrian Peterson. So, anyways, this draft has wrapped up here. It definitely went very unconventional, and this is something that I would not expect to see on any other rookie draft. To be honest with you, to see Joe Burrow go all the way at 107 where I got him, which totally derailed my draft plan. But anyways, so I guess to recap, it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, J.K. Dobbins, Joe Burrow, Cam Akers, Tua, Jalen Reagor, Denzel Mims, and Justin Jefferson. I guess to recap the first round quickly, what are your thoughts on that? Anything outside of, obviously, we know that Joe Burrow would probably go 101, 102, maybe Tua would likely go maybe right after him, or at least within the few picks of him. So we know that. So calibrating for that, they still went in the first round. But is this pretty much a standard what you're seeing, or how you feel these guys will go, or somebody like Henry Ruggs who went in the second more likely to go in the first?
I think you'd be more likely to see Ruggs over Mims in the first, but I think as far as like the players go, this is going to be pretty standard, pretty typical. Maybe you get actually I would expect Herbert to be in the mix for like the 112 range, because again, SuperFlex like that alone is going to have the guys vault up draft boards like the same way they do in the NFL, right?
Right.
Like there's so many guys who like we look at like a Mitchell Trubisky had 12 starts under his belt, and a lot of people hated on Josh Allen, where if it was actually how these teams had them graded in terms of their skill level, like you're not going to see them go until day 2, day 3, but because of the value that they hold for an NFL team, that's why you're going to see them go up. Same thing with Herbert. I think Herbert at 208 is going to be more likely what you see in a one quarterback league versus a SuperFlex, obviously. But in terms of the players that went in the first, I think that's going to be pretty chalk. Just the order obviously is going to be jumbled. I think Ruggs probably, once he gets drafted in the first round, he might even be, we've talked about it, he might even be the first wide receiver taken. Even in a SuperFlex format, I don't see him falling to the second. I think he would bump out Mims there in that case. And because we're not going to see, I don't think we see any running back go in the first, maybe one, if that. It also wouldn't surprise me if maybe some of these running backs like a Dobbins or an Akers start to get pushed back a little bit. And again, that's going to give room for Herbert to jump it up into the first. And then maybe even kind of seems like Jordan Love is the QB 3 or 4, depending on who you're listening to in terms of NFL draft. So he's probably going to be toward that 112 discussion by the time that the NFL draft wraps up this time next week, man.
Yeah, no, you're right. So with the second round, like the one thing that I've said that I think that a lot of people probably should try to do is acquire as many second round picks as you can, because this second round is going to be loaded. As you've already mentioned, if Justin Herbert, who's a guy who went in the second round here, and Jordan Love will end up going in the first, you're talking about guys that are going to be pushed down like Denzel Mims, possibly a Justin Jefferson, or a Jalen Reagor. Those guys could all be going in the second, along with T. Higgins, Laviska Shenault, Zach Moss, Brandon Ayuk, Keyshawn Vaughn, Michael Pittman, Brian Edwards. Like, all these dudes are going to be going in the second. Like, the second round it seems like a really sweet spot to acquire. And it's not going to take a ton of value to be able to acquire second round picks. And so, yeah, I mean, seems to be the sweet spot for the draft right now. I don't think there's anything crazy about this one. Like you mentioned, I think Justin Herbert, and Jordan Love.
Oh no, it's happening.
Have a decent shot of going in the first round as well. And the third round, you had Jake Fromm, KJ Hamler, Sheepus, Antonio Gibson, Jesus, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Eno Benjamin, Darrington Evans, Chase Claypool, Anthony McFarland, Jacob Eason, Antonio Gandy Golden, and Tyler Jefferson. What?
Tyler Jefferson.
Oh, Tyler Johnson. Sorry. Jesus Christ. You just do this. I am all over the place here.
All right,
you read the next round.
I'll finish this out so you can unhydro lock.
So I can calibrate myself.
Yeah, plug back in and get yourself straightened out here. But finish this out. Fourth round: Cole Kmet, Josh Kelly, Bryson Hopkins, Harrison Bryant, Devin Duvernay, Hunter Bryant, Albert O, DJ Dallas, Lynn Bowden, Troutman, Thaddeus Moss, James Prochet. At the 4-12 and 5-1, the last round of this mock here, we're going to finish out Colin Johnson, Isaiah Hodgins, Van Jefferson, Rico Dowdle, James Robinson, LaMichael Pirine, Darnell Mooney, Kalijah Lipscomb, Anthony Gordon, Darius Anderson, KJ Hill, and wide receiver Joe Reed to finish out the fifth.
Well, you did a lot better than me there. That was rough, right? For me, I don't know what's going on. Sunday, tired, I guess. I don't know. But it is what it is. So, any final thoughts?
Not really, man. Just excited for the draft coming up. Like we said, appreciate everyone who jumped in. We kind of threw this thing out there this morning, and appreciate everyone who took the time to mock with us, and probably set some more of these up as we go along. And then this is a couple months out, but what we did last year with doing a mock draft every Monday for your redraft league. So we'll definitely be doing more of these in the near future.
No, 100%. So I appreciate everybody who joined us. It was a lot of fun. Again, it didn't really work out the way that a typical dynasty rookie draft would fall, with all the quarterbacks falling. I don't know if people just missed the memo that it was a super flex, but nevertheless, that's what happened. But I am really excited that the NFL draft is now upon us, and we're only a couple days away. We only have 3 more days, and it's going to be the NFL draft. We actually have something new to talk about. And instead of just breaking these guys down from a tape perspective, from a measurements perspective, analytics, whatever way you want to look at it, like, we finally were able to actually talk about landing spot. We don't have to say, well, it depends on where they land. Well, what system they landed. Well, none of that all will be gone. We'll actually be able to talk about where they landed, how they're going to be used, and what it means for them, and not just them, but the players that are around them, and how everything's going to shake out. So that is what I'm the most excited about, that we'll finally get the last piece to all of this. And then, of course, everybody will just jump on to 2021 and be ready to start rolling into that, here before too long with all the Devy guys. But that's what I'm most excited about. Like I said, we have a ton of guests lined up for these next these two shows. And be sure to check out our Twitter feed tomorrow, because we have something pretty special with that as well. So, you have any last words?
No, just our draft show is definitely going to be a full house. That's what I'll say.
It is definitely going to be a full house for sure. I think I've kind of checked on see what the community's doing, and there's going to be a lot of shows. But most of them are just doing it themselves, and I've seen some people hyping "Ooh, we might have a special guest lined up." I'm like, bitch, please, we got 35. We just went out and just acquired. I just went out and just rated all of the fantasy community's inbox to see who could get. And I am super excited to have everybody that we have on, every one of them. We'll have basically a rotation every 20 minutes, 1 or 2 new guests every 20 minutes. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope everybody joins us. There will be alcohol, so who knows? I'm already rough enough in the stuff that I talk about when I'm sober. So once I get alcohol involved, it could get really wild. And so maybe we have to come up with some sort of like giveaway or do something like that with it as well to kind of give back while we're doing this, because we're going to be streaming basically for 8 hours, right?
Yeah,
so maybe we can come up with something. Sure. Get a little creative with it. So
I will say last thing real quick. Bill McCarthy at SuperFlex. He's putting together a tweet thread with everyone who's doing live shows and YouTubes and podcasts and everything for the draft. So obviously you're gonna want to be locked in here. All right.
I say, why are you giving out? Like, why would you want people to go check out all the other ones?
Because you know what, they're gonna come here. They're gonna watch this one. They're gonna say, "Oh, that's pretty sick." They're going to go to another one, and then they're going to come running right back anyway. So it doesn't matter how many are going on. Everyone's going to be in here.
So it's sort of like, how do I put this? Like, like you're with your girl, and like, she's like your main piece. But every once in a while, maybe, you have the people. Not something I've ever done, but I just know people have. Like I'm just trying to use this as an analogy, okay? But that people like maybe wander off and try to find something else and check it out, and they're like, you know what? This isn't for me. I don't want this. I'm gonna go where my bread is buttered, and is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying we're gonna be out here butter and bread. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. So, anyways, I think we've rambled on enough. I really appreciate it. This was supposed to be 30 minutes. Here we are. This is TFA. We are on brand every single time. 56 minutes into this. This should be out either hopefully Monday, if not, it'll be Tuesday. But it will be out. And again, we look forward to seeing you guys. There will be no regular podcast on Thursday this week, obviously, because we're going to be recording live 2 shows next week. And then we'll be doing all the post NFL draft breakdown after that. So really appreciate everybody checking out the show, rating and review. Check us out on YouTube. Like I said, we have so much content. We're going to have a ton more content coming from there. We got a lot of special stuff planned for that. So I really appreciate it. And until we see you again on Thursday, peace.